The crystalline spires of Nova Station pierced the star-studded void of space, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 distant suns. Inside the bustling diplomatic quarter, Thea Blackwood adjusted her environmental suit for the 100th time, watching as other scientists and diplomats gave her the usual wide berth. After 15 years of isolation, she'd grown accustomed to the space others kept between themselves and her unique condition. Dr. Blackwood, the station's AI chimed softly in her ear, the Earth delegation has arrived. Ambassador Jensen requests your presence in Conference Room Alpha. Thea's heart quickened. This was her chance to finally make a difference, to prove that her condition wasn't just a curse but potentially the key to understanding cross-species cellular degradation. She made her way through the winding corridors, the subtle hum of her suit's force field creating a familiar bubble of isolation around her. The conference room doors slid open, revealing a gathering of both human and alien diplomats. At the center of the group stood Raven Jensen, recently appointed ambassador to the Galactic Council. His presence commanded attention not through intimidation, but through a quiet confidence that seemed to draw others naturally into his orbit. Dr. Blackwood, Raven stepped forward, his dark eyes showing genuine interest rather than the usual pity or fear she'd grown accustomed to. Your research on xenobiological cellular harmonics is fascinating. I've read all your papers. Ambassador, Thea nodded, maintaining her distance. I should warn you, my condition makes it impossible for any living being to touch me without fatal consequences. A smile tugged at the corner of Raven's mouth. Yes, I read about that too. Something about your cellular structure causing instant degradation in other organic matter upon contact. Fascinating. Before Thea could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the conference room in an eerie glow. The station's AI voice cut through the chaos, warning. Containment breach in Laboratory Section 7. Biohazard protocols engaged. Thea's blood ran cold. Section 7, her laboratory. Where she'd been studying the artifacts from the ancient ruins on Proxima b. The artifacts that seemed to resonate with the same energy frequency as her condition. We need to evacuate, one of the alien diplomats announced, already heading for the door. But Raven's eyes remained locked on Thea's. Those artifacts in your lab, he said quietly. They're connected to your condition, aren't they? Thea hesitated, then nodded. I think they might hold the key to understanding why I am the way I am. And possibly. She took a deep breath, how to control it. Then we should probably go check on them, Raven said with a hint of adventure in his voice. Lead the way, Doctor. As they navigated the emptying corridors toward the laboratory section, Thea couldn't help but study Raven from behind her protective visor. He moved with a fluid grace that spoke of military training, yet his diplomatic credentials were impeccable. There was something else about him too, a sense that he wasn't quite what he appeared to be. They reached the sealed doors of Section 7, where emergency containment fields sparkled with purple energy. Through the reinforced windows, Thea could see the artifacts she'd been studying, ancient crystalline structures that pulsed with an inner light that matched the frequency of her own cellular vibrations. The containment fields are failing, Thea announced, checking the readings on her suit's display. If those artifacts fully activate. She never finished her sentence. The door's security panel exploded in a shower of sparks, and 3 figures in unmarked black environmental suits burst through the failing containment field. One of them grabbed the largest artifact, its surface now glowing bright enough to be painful to look at. Stop! Thea shouted, stepping forward without thinking. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. One of the intruders fired some kind of energy weapon. Raven moved to push Thea out of the way, his hand connecting with her shoulder, where her suit had been damaged by the weapon's discharge. Their skin made contact. Thea's heart stopped, expecting to see Raven dissolve into atoms like everyone else who had ever touched her. But he remained solid. Real. Whole. Their eyes met through her visor, shock mirrored in both their expressions. That's impossible, Thea whispered. The artifact in the intruder's hands pulsed brighter, and a wave of energy exploded outward. The last thing Thea saw before losing consciousness was Raven's face, his expression a mixture of concern and wonder, as he caught her falling form without hesitation, becoming the first person in 15 years to hold her without dying. Thea awoke in the station's medical bay, the familiar hum of her isolation field surrounding her. But something was different, someone was holding her hand. Her eyes flew open to find Raven sitting beside her bed, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "The doctors tried to pull me away," he said softly, answering her unspoken question. "They were convinced I'd dissolve like all the others. Took quite a bit of convincing to let me stay." Thea stared at their joined hands, emotions she'd long suppressed threatening to overwhelm her. "How is this possible?" "The artifacts," Raven's expression grew serious. "They're gone. Along with our mysterious thieves. But not before they left us a message." He held up his free hand, revealing a small crystal shard that pulsed with the same frequency as Thea's condition. "It says, the resonance pairs have awakened." Before Thea could respond, the medical bay doors slid open. Director Helena Frost of Station Security entered, flanked by 2 guards. Her expression was a careful mask of neutrality, but her eyes betrayed a mix of fear and calculation. "Dr. Blackwood, Ambassador Jensen," she nodded curtly. "I'm afraid I need to place you both under quarantine. The energy surge from the laboratory has caused concerning developments." Thea felt Raven's hand tighten slightly around hers. "What kind of developments?" he asked, his diplomatic training evident in his measured tone. Director Frost activated a holographic display. It showed various sections of the station where the energy wave had passed through. In its wake, certain materials, mostly ancient artifacts and some specialized technology, had begun resonating with the same frequency as Thea's condition. "Whatever your condition is, Doctor," Frost said, "it's spreading. And you," she turned to Raven, "are the only known being who can touch her without consequences. That makes you both potentially vital to station security, or a threat to it. Or," Raven stood, still holding Thea's hand, "we might be the key to understanding something much bigger than station security." Those thieves knew exactly what they were after. They knew about the resonance pairs. This isn't just about Thea's condition anymore. A soft chime interrupted them as Dr. Samira Patel, the station's chief xenoarchaeologist, rushed into the medical bay. Her dark eyes were bright with excitement. "Director, you need to see this. We found references to the resonance pairs in ancient texts from 3 different civilizations. They all point to the same thing, a fundamental force that once connected all sentient species in the galaxy." Thea felt a spark of recognition. "My research," she said, sitting up straighter. "I've been studying cellular harmonics between different species. The resonance patterns I've discovered, they're like echoes of something bigger. Something that used to exist. And now it's waking up," Raven finished, their eyes meeting in shared understanding. The station lights flickered, and a low hum began to build throughout the structure. Director Frost's communicator crackled with urgent messages from various departments. "Multiple artifacts throughout the station are activating," she reported, her composure finally cracking. "Energy readings are off the charts. We need to evacuate dash." The lights went out completely, plunging them into darkness broken only by the soft purple glow emanating from Thea's skin, a glow now mirrored in Raven's hand where it touched hers. "I don't think evacuation is the answer," Raven said quietly. "Whatever this is, it's been waiting to happen for a very long time. And somehow, we're part of it." Through the medical bay's windows, they could see other parts of the station beginning to pulse with the same purple light. In the darkness, Dr. Patel's voice was filled with wonder. "The ancient texts speak of a time when all beings could touch, could connect, could share consciousness across the stars. But something happened, some catastrophic event that shattered this connection. And now it's trying to rebuild itself," Thea whispered, watching as the light spread through her and Raven's joined hands, creating patterns that seemed to tell a story older than civilization itself. Director Frost's communicator crackled again. Director, we're receiving signals from multiple sectors of space. Similar energy signatures are appearing on other stations, other worlds. And, we're picking up ships approaching. Lots of them. Configuration unknown. The crystal shard in Raven's hand pulsed brighter, projecting symbols into the air around them. Thea recognized them from her research, ancient glyphs that spoke of connection, of unity, of a power that transcended physical barriers. They're coming, she said, understanding flooding through her. The ones who took the artifacts, they're not trying to stop this. They're trying to guide it. To control it. Raven's hand squeezed hers gently. Then we need to understand it first. Whatever this power is, whatever made you different all these years, whatever lets me touch you when no one else can, it's all connected. And I have a feeling we don't have much time to figure it out. As if in response to his words, the station trembled as the first of the unknown ships dropped out of hyperspace nearby, their hulls gleaming with the same purple light that now connected Thea and Raven, a light that promised to either unite the galaxy or tear it apart. The unknown ships hung in space like dark jewels, their hulls rippling with waves of purple energy that matched the pulsing light flowing between Thea and Raven. Nova Station's emergency systems bathed the corridors in red warning lights, creating an otherworldly atmosphere as they made their way to the ancient artifacts repository. The archives mentioned 7 pairs, Dr. Patel explained, her fingers flying over holographic displays as ancient text scrolled past. 7 bonds that would bridge the Great Divide. But the translations are unclear about what that divide actually is. Thea felt Raven's presence behind her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. The simple touch still sent shivers through her. 15 years of isolation made every point of contact feel electric, meaningful. Look at this, she pointed to a particular sequence of symbols. These patterns match the energy signatures we're detecting from those ships. They're not just similar, they're identical. A deep rumble shook the station. Director Frost's voice came through the comm system, "We're being hailed. The ships, they're requesting to speak with the first pair." Raven and Thea exchanged glances. "They mean us," she said softly. "We're not doing anything until we understand more," Raven replied, his diplomatic training evident in his measured tone. But there was something else in his voice, a protective edge that made Thea's heart flutter. Dr. Patel gasped, drawing their attention back to the archives. "I found something. The divide, it wasn't just physical separation. According to these texts, our galaxy once existed in perfect harmony. All species could share thoughts, emotions, energy, but something happened. A catastrophic event that shattered this connection. My condition," Thea whispered. "It's not a mutation or a curse. It's an echo of what we once were. And Raven somehow carries the complementary frequency," Dr. Patel finished. "The texts speak of resonance pairs, beings whose energy signatures would align perfectly, creating a bridge across the divide. But finding your match was supposed to be nearly impossible. The odds." Another tremor shook the station. Through the viewport, they could see more ships appearing, their designs varied but all sharing that same purple luminescence. "They're here for us," Raven said quietly. "All of them. Different species, different worlds, but they've all been waiting for this moment." The crystal shard they'd recovered pulsed brighter, projecting a complex series of images into the air. They showed a galaxy united, consciousness flowing freely between stars, and then a massive tear in reality itself, the great divide that had separated all beings. "The prophecy speaks of healing," Dr. Patel translated, her voice trembling with excitement. "When the first pair awakens, they will call to the others. 7 pairs, 7 bridges, 7 chances to restore what was lost." Thea felt something stir within her, a resonance that went deeper than physical touch. When she looked at Raven, she could sense his thoughts, his emotions, not clearly, but like whispers at the edge of consciousness. "I can feel you," she breathed. "In my mind." Raven nodded, his dark eyes intense. "I know. It's getting stronger." The station speakers crackled to life with an otherworldly voice. "First pair, the time of restoration approaches. But there are those who would maintain the divide. The shadows still walk among us." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the station. Director Frost's voice cut through the chaos, multiple breaches detected. Intruders in sections 3, 7, and 12. They're walking through our security fields like they don't exist. Through the repository windows, they could see figures moving through the corridors, humanoid shapes wrapped in swirling darkness that seemed to devour light itself. "The shadows," Thea whispered. "They're what caused the divide in the first place. Aren't they?" Dr. Patel frantically searched through the texts. "Yes. The ancient records speak of beings who believed separation was necessary for evolution. They engineered the great catastrophe that shattered our connection. And now they're here to stop it from being restored," Raven finished. He pulled Thea closer, their combined resonance creating a shield of purple light around them just as one of the shadow figures phased through the repository wall. The creature's form shifted and writhed, its voice like static in their minds. "The divide must be maintained. Connection leads to stagnation. We will not allow the bridges to be rebuilt." But as it approached, the purple light surrounding Thea and Raven intensified. Where their hands joined, the energy pulsed outward in waves that seemed to push back the darkness. "The connection doesn't make us weaker," Thea said, understanding flowing through her. "It makes us stronger. Every species, every civilization, we're meant to grow together, not apart." The shadow being recoiled as their combined resonance grew stronger. Through their developing mental link, Thea could feel Raven's agreement, his support, She caught her breath as she realized what else she was feeling from him. Emotions too deep for words, too powerful to deny. Around them, the station trembled as more shadow beings appeared, while in space, the gathered ships began to move into defensive positions. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but the fate of every sentient being in the galaxy. And through it all, Thea held on to Raven's hand, their resonance building towards something that felt like destiny itself. Purple light and shadow clashed throughout Nova Station as Thea and Raven raced through the corridors, their joined hands trailing streamers of luminescent energy. Behind them, shadow beings phased through walls and floors, their dark forms distorting reality itself. But wherever Thea and Raven's combined resonance touched, the shadows couldn't follow. "The other pairs," Thea gasped as they rounded a corner. "The prophecy said we need all 7 to restore the connection. How do we find them?" Through their strengthening mental link, she felt Raven's revelation before he spoke it. "We don't find them," he said, pulling her to a stop near the station's central atrium. "We wake them." Dr. Patel's voice crackled through their communicators. "He's right. The ancient texts say the first pair's resonance acts as a catalyst. There are others like you out there, pairs whose frequencies match but haven't activated yet." The atrium's massive windows revealed the space battle unfolding outside. Ships from a dozen different species fought against vessels that seemed made of living shadow, their weapons leaving tears in space itself. Director Frost's voice joined the communication. "Whatever you're going to do it fast. Our shields are failing, and those shadow ships are targeting the station's reactor core." Thea felt Raven's hand tighten around hers. Through their connection, she could sense his plan forming. "The resonance chamber," she said, picking up his thoughts. "Where they kept the artifacts. Its crystalline structure could amplify our energy. And broadcast it across the galaxy," Raven finished. Their eyes met, understanding flowing between them. This was why they could touch, why they had found each other across impossible odds. They were meant to be the key that unlocked everything. They made their way to the chamber, fighting through waves of shadow beings. Each encounter made their connection stronger, their combined light burning brighter. But it also showed them glimpses of what the shadows truly were, reflections of fear, of the belief that separation was safer than unity. The resonance chamber was a cathedral-like space, its crystalline walls rising in geometric patterns that seemed to sing with their own frequency. As soon as they entered, the crystals began to pulse in harmony with their energy. The station's losing structural integrity, Director Frost reported. 5 minutes until total failure. Thea turned to Raven, her heart pounding. If we do this, broadcast our resonance across the galaxy, we don't know what it will do to us. The energy required. Raven pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Through their link, she felt his love, his determination, his absolute certainty that whatever happened, they would face it together. Since the moment I touched you, he whispered, everything changed. Whatever comes next, it was worth it just for that. Shadow beings began to materialize around them, their dark forms creating a tightening circle. But they couldn't approach the platform at the chamber's center, where the resonance was strongest. The texts speak of a price, Dr. Patel's voice was urgent. The first pair's sacrifice opens the way for others. But it doesn't say what that sacrifice is. Thea looked into Raven's eyes, seeing her own emotions reflected there. Fear, yes, but also hope. Purpose. Love. Whatever it takes, she said softly. To heal what was broken. To show everyone what's possible. They stepped onto the central platform together. The chamber's crystals blazed with light, their frequency matching the pulse that flowed between Thea and Raven. Through their deepening connection, they could feel it building, not just energy, but possibility. The chance to remake everything. The shadow beings launched a final assault, their darkness crashing against the barrier of light that surrounded the platform. Outside, their ships pressed closer to the station, weapons charging. 30 seconds to shield failure, Director Frost announced. Thea and Raven stood face to face, their joined hands raised between them. The chamber's crystals began to sing, a harmony that spoke of connection, of healing, of love strong enough to bridge any divide. I can feel them, Thea gasped. The other pairs. So many of them, all across the galaxy, just waiting to wake up. Then let's wake them, Raven smiled, pulling her into a kiss that felt like starlight. Their combined resonance exploded outward, turning the chamber into a beacon of purple light that shot into space. The station's crystals amplified it, sending it racing across the galaxy in waves of pure possibility. As their consciousness expanded with the pulse, they caught glimpses of what was happening. On 1,000 worlds, beings who had never been able to touch were suddenly drawn together, their matching frequencies awakening. The shadow ships began to dissolve as the light touched them, their darkness transformed into something new. And through it all, Thea and Raven held on to each other, their very atoms singing in harmony as the power built towards something that would either transform them or destroy them completely. But in that moment, wrapped in light and love, neither of them was afraid. The universe held its breath as purple light cascaded across the stars. In Nova Station's resonance chamber, Thea and Raven floated in a cocoon of pure energy, their bodies transparent as crystal, shot through with threads of luminescent power. Their consciousness had expanded beyond physical form, touching minds across vast distances as their broadcast awakened more resonance pairs. Through their merged awareness, they witnessed miracles unfolding across the galaxy. On a desert world, a crystalline being and a creature of living flame touched for the first time, their opposing natures harmonizing instead of destroying each other. In the depths of a gas giant, entities of pure thought found their physical anchors. Everywhere, the impossible became possible as ancient barriers crumbled. The divide is healing, Thea's voice echoed both physically and mentally. But the shadows, they weren't our enemies at all. As their resonance reached its peak, they could finally see the truth. The shadow beings were manifestations of fear, not malevolent entities, but guardians born from an ancient misunderstanding. As the light touched them, they transformed, revealing their true nature as observers who had waited eons for this moment. One of them materialized beside the floating pair, its dark form now threaded with purple light. "The test is complete," it said, its voice carrying across all frequencies. "You have proven that connection breeds not stagnation, but evolution. The time of separation is over." Through the station's windows, they watched as the shadow ships transformed into vessels of crystal and light, their weapons becoming beacons that helped stabilize the changing fabric of spacetime. The tears they had created began to heal as new forms of energy flowed through the restored connections. Dr. Patel's voice came through their expanded consciousness. "The ancient texts, we were translating them wrong. It wasn't about 7 pairs creating 7 bridges. It was about the first pair awakening 7 levels of connection across all species." Thea felt Raven's agreement, his understanding flowing through their bond. The 7 levels: physical touch, emotional resonance, mental connection, spiritual alignment, temporal synchronization, quantum entanglement, and finally, universal harmony. But as the transformation spread, they felt their own bodies beginning to change. The energy required to maintain the broadcast was consuming them, turning their physical forms into pure resonance. "Stay with me," Raven's consciousness wrapped around hers as their bodies became increasingly transparent. Through their connection, she felt his love, his fear of losing her, his determination to hold on. "Always," she promised, their very atoms intertwining. The chamber erupted with light as the final level of connection cascaded through the galaxy. For a moment, every sentient being could feel what Thea and Raven shared, not just their love, but the profound truth that separation was an illusion. They were all connected, all part of the same cosmic dance. As the light reached its peak, something unexpected happened. Instead of destroying them, the energy began to crystallize, transforming their bodies into a new form of matter that existed in perfect resonance. Where there had been 2 separate beings, there was now something unique, a hybrid state of consciousness that maintained their individuality while sharing a deeper connection than any species had known before. They floated down to the chamber floor, their new forms solidifying into bodies that shimmered with internal light. Around them, the station's crystals hummed with renewed energy, now part of a living network that spanned the galaxy. Director Frost's voice came through the restored communication system, filled with awe. "The station, it's not just repairing itself. It's evolving. The whole galaxy is." Through their expanded awareness, Thea and Raven could feel the changes rippling across space and time. The 7 levels of connection had created a new framework for existence itself, one where diversity bred strength and separation only existed by choice, not necessity. "What are we now?" Thea wondered, looking at her crystalline hands that still held traces of her original form. Raven pulled her close, their bodies resonating in perfect harmony. "We're what we always were," he smiled. "Just more so." One by one, the transformed shadow beings appeared around them, no longer dark but shimmering with their own inner light. "The first pair has succeeded beyond all predictions," they announced in unified voice. "You have not just restored the ancient connections, you have improved upon them. The galaxy is ready for its next evolution." Dr. Patel rushed into the chamber, her eyes wide as she took in their transformed appearance. "The other pairs," she reported excitedly. "They're not just awakening, they're starting to transform too. Each in their own unique way, creating new forms of connection we never imagined possible." Thea turned to Raven, their new forms allowing them to see each other on every level of existence simultaneously. His soul was as beautiful as she had always known it would be. "So," she said with a smile that rippled across multiple dimensions, "ready for our next impossible adventure?" His answer came through all 7 levels of their connection, a promise, a challenge, and a declaration of love that would echo through the transformed galaxy for eons to come. Together, they stepped forward into a future where touch was no longer forbidden, where connection meant strength, and where love could literally transform reality itself. The curse that had isolated Thea for so long had become a gift, not just for her and Raven, but for every being capable of reaching out to another. As Nova Station's crystals sang with new frequencies, as transformed ships carried the message of change to the furthest reaches of space, as newly awakened pairs discovered their own unique ways of connecting, one truth became clear: in a universe of infinite possibilities, love would always find a way to bridge the greatest divides.